This is basically a crash course from starting uni to maybe getting a job as a junior games designer. I'm Zachary Preece. I was at Staff last year. I graduated. I've moved country, and now I'm a junior games designer at Ubisoft. These slides will be on my Twitter afterwards. They'll be on a Google Drive. Just go and grab them because there's going to be a lot of content coming really quickly. Okay. So as I said, I'm a Staff's graduate. I graduated with first. I'm a junior games designer working on Watch Dogs Legion. I can't talk about it. Don't ask questions at the end about it. I moved abroad to escape the Brexit game, but you know how it is. I wanted this talk mainly because no game designers have ever come in to do talk at Staffs within my entire 4 years at university. So I've flown here and done it, but there's 4 this year. So I just mainly want to answer a lot of questions that I had while at university. When you're working on your projects, what do you need in them? How should you approach these things? How do you make your project actually appealing to an employer? Just stuff like, do I need to put it on Steam? You don't need to do that, don't worry. But yeah, so I wanted to focus firstly on the main thing I heard every game designer I ever spoke to say to me ever at every industry event, and it was this: just make games. I've heard this so many times, and it was so infuriating because it just doesn't answer the questions about what you need to do, how you should do it, and it's infuriating. 'Cause it's so much more than that. It's about your process and how you approach developing these things. So before we focus on that, I want to circle back to what you should really be doing at university. So year one, the most important thing you can do, that's my project over there I did in year one, it's terrible. Make friends and connections, Go to game jams, go to events, talk to your classmates. You need to build people that you can access and just ask questions to continually. It's so important for later on when you get in university, just having people you can access quickly. And learn the basics of coding, learn C#, learn Blueprint. These are vital because if you want to build stuff, you've got to know how to do it. You can't just depend on your programmer mate, because he might drop out, and it's just so problematic unless you learn it yourself. And make your first playable game over the summer. Year one's kind of chill, you can get away with dossing around a bit, but you need to make your first playable thing over the summer. You have something that you can say, you can get back in second year and be like, hey, look, I made this. I learned from this. If you make your first portfolio piece while you're just starting, it will just put you miles ahead of everyone else. You'll be so ahead for year 2 engines, and it will give you room to flex. So getting on to year 2, I made a card game. Don't do that. You'll make the lecturers very mad. But make even more friends, even more connections. You just truly need to invest yourself in university. Whether that's going to Stats Fight Club or just going to the other video game stuff, just try get around and talk to as many people as possible. Now theoretically you've got your first portfolio piece, so you can kind of go to places like Ukie, EGX, and you can talk to the other designers here and be like, hey, I did this, I presented it like this. What feedback would you have for me at this point? And you'll get some useful stuff then. And you can use your engine, your design modules to make some cool stuff now, because theoretically you spent first year summer learning how to make a really cool game, and now you've got a little bit more room to actually create your own thing and have your own approach to it. And then coming on to the big one, third year. So first off, don't make a game. I've seen so many people try and do this. I tried to do this. I think it is one of the biggest mistakes you can do. I put all my effort into making a game, and it's just not what you want to do. You need to make a really good vertical slice. You need to make an amazing 10 minutes, not a good 45 or an okay hour. This is mainly because if you keep it simple and keep it small, this will be explained further on why it's a good idea. It will give you a chance to build something that actually feels good and isn't very janky. You want to take a simple mechanic, how much can you get that mechanic? How much can you change it? How do you keep it engaging? It's something that can be viewed and understood at a glance. They don't have to try to understand the intricacies of a system. And, treat your FYP like a full-time job. You're at university, you're paying $9,000 a year, you're going all out with this. You need to fully commit to your final year project and document the shit out of it. Everything you can do, every little thing you can do, Just make a beautiful game design document. Show that you're just not a programmer. Like, oh yeah, I know how to code stuff, but like, why did you do that? How did you do that? Like, what did you do to make it fun? Like, did you like scope down? Did you change things? And then make sure you've got that 1.0 document. This will give you an amazing way, like, this is the start of my game, and this is how it ended up. How did it change, right? Then after you're working on it, playtest, see what your mates say, get feedback on that, and iterate your game upon that. And moving on to portfolio stuff now, I can't stress this enough. They don't care who you are. When you make a portfolio, do not have a massive introduction about, you're John and you love games. Because we're looking at this stuff, you have these massive intros about who you are, and they don't care, they want to see what you've done. So just quickly moving over to like my portfolio, which is no means the best kind of thing, but there's not many viewable game design portfolios out there. So just some simple stuff, this is quite zoomed out, but you can get an idea. You want your profession title at the very top, because if you're a game designer applying for an LD job or vice versa, they're just going to be like, this guy's clearly shotgunning, like just apply for one role. And then you want a very short description, like I'm John, I like making games, really short. And then if you look at this zoomed out, the very first thing you see is these massive project, if an interviewer opens this, they're going to see where it is immediately. They're going to go, okay, there's the project. Because they're not going to read most of this. They just purely want to get the project and see all its content. You've got these giant catchy images and being able to switch around your projects very quickly. There's a little thing underneath my name where you can quickly just change projects. Now moving on to more content-based stuff. The most important part is a trailer. Trailers are fantastic, but don't have these long panning intro stuff. Don't say, oh, it's a John Smith game. You're not Hideo Kojima. No one gives a crap about who you are. Don't have a studio logo in front of it. Don't even have the Unreal stuff. Just jump straight into the gameplay, because you've made a game that can be identified what it is very quickly. Then download link. Put it on itch.io. Show that it actually exists. They want to see that it's a real thing. So then, documentation link. They want to see that it exists as well. They're not going to read all of it, but say like, hey, I actually did make a document. And then, just a really short elevator pitch what your game is. And then moving on to more content stuff, because a lot of people have their portfolio just as this. And a lot of people are, okay, cool, he's made a game, but, how did you think about it? Have this scroll down a little bit. At this point, if you're a recruiter, you've probably seen that and go, I might pass him on to the guy who's going to interview him, and then the game designer who's going to look at your stuff will look at this bit and see if you're actually worth interviewing. So do some, really good in-depth breakdowns. How did you do things? Why did you do things? Your iteration, your progress. If someone sees that you've put this much effort into it, like just at a glance, they're going to be like, we might give him a shot, have a talk to him. So then just, hit your breakdowns about stuff. Just show your thought process. Include your spreadsheets, your flowcharts, how you balance things, why you balance things, why did you do it like that. Your iteration, just completely splurge a love letter to your game that you've treated like a full-time job for like 6 months. And then, of course, videos. You can quickly get an idea of what your game is. Like, I didn't even have to explain what this is to you, but all these pictures and stuff, you're kind of like, okay, I kind of get the concept. And then, as I said, crash course, very quick on this. Networking, that's my business card. Blizzard haven't gone after me yet. But I remember being very frustrated about networking because, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to network? It's great if you've got, social skills. If you like the social skills of a baked potato like me, you just talk to them, ask them how they are, how they're doing. What did you do to get in? Okay, great, thanks. And, what does that achieve? What it really means is talk to them, get their socials, get their name, get their Twitter, find out their LinkedIn stuff, build a network of people that you can just, you follow around and you engage with just online. I cannot stress the importance of this, and it will come into effect later. But, business cards as well, great, simple, quirky, make the interaction memorable, and show that you can kind of put a fun spin on something as simple as a business card. And then GradX. This is amazing. GradX is such an important day. You're exposed to so many people in the industry in such a tight, controlled burst. You want to try and impress them and just make as much networking stuff as you can. Just communicate with people. Some good GradX tips are get a PC at the end. You're way more accessible that way. Get in there early, get it down. Print out your documentation, because that makes you look prepared. It makes you look smart. It's like, hey, look, this is how my game started. This is how it ended up. If they ask a question about your game, don't just answer it. Show them it in the game design documentation. Be like, I just wasn't, hammering stuff in Unreal at like 3 in the morning. Show that you put proper thought into it. Make sure your game is ready to play. This is where you make that good 10 minutes. They're going to look at it for 5, play it for 2, if that. Like, there's so many people coming in and rotating out. You need to make that amazing, quick gameplay. That's why if you make a full game, they're only going to see the first 2 minutes of your tutorial. And it's like, at that point, why bother? Why bother making that, hour-long, okay experience where you could wow them with that 3-minute, super engaging intro? So I made the mistake here because networking, I didn't really get it at that point. But don't just, talk to people, give out your business cards. Talk to them, get their socials, get their LinkedIn, get them, this sort of stuff is in hand. I spent ages talking to Rebellion, and I remember that I had that conversation, and I put it in the covering letter. And I was like, hey, I spoke to Philip Oliver, and I spoke to some other programmers. We really got along. We had a good conversation, and I'd love to work for you guys. And I got an interview offer within 10 minutes of emailing them because of that. If you truly make an impact on these guys, you not only need to impress them, you need to also make it so you can actually follow up afterwards for stuff. Okay. And job hunting. There's a reason why people say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. This is why you network. It's so important. If you talk to your mate who works somewhere, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a job open at Thingy, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'll put your CV in. Having a good CV and a custom covering letter is really important. Make a covering letter template that you can swap out really quickly. So in theory, you spent 1, 2, 3 years getting to know people in the industry, getting to know your other students who are now employed in the industry. You've got lots of connections. This is why you do this thing. This is why people come to university. You can get a first in your degree. You can get a 2-1 in your degree. It doesn't matter. They want to see what you've done, and then it's not what you've done, it's who you know. So, when you speak to these people to try to get a job, hey, I saw you at so-and-so, we had a good conversation, then ask them really politely, and I emphasize on polite because, you're effectively messing them out the blue, this sort of thing. And if, you're polite, they remember you sort of thing, but oh yeah, sure, put your CV in. And be prepared to get rejected over and over and over again. I applied for 100 places. I maybe got 3 or 4 interviews. I have a folder on my Outlook called Rejected just to purely count how many times people told me to bugger off. And don't get picky about where you want to go. You're not going to get to work on your favorite franchise. You're not going to work on your favorite thing, except me because I love Ubisoft. And just don't be picky. Be prepared to move. I don't work in the UK. I work in Bucharest, and it's a fun opportunity that you can really go for. And there's lots of stuff going in China. So if you're up for an adventure, make sure on your LinkedIn that you put you're open to job opportunities. And my CVs are terrible, but just give you an idea. This sort of thing. I had 2 CVs, one for a games tech designer and one for a regular designer. I used a website called Canvas for this. It makes you look a bit smarter. You've got something that's in a PDF. It looks a bit cool. It stands out a bit. And, just put who you are, but put your portfolio at the top. If they open your CV, bam, portfolio. And lastly, as far as this goes, you got your skills, which it's CV stuff. It's CV stuff. But put your experience at the bottom because there's a high chance you work in student union for a year and a half is good. But it's not going to be relevant to applying to a game studio. And then interviews. Okay, before you get interviewed, you'll get a design test. They're usually quite, fundamental challenges that you can do, and based upon how you, do the design test, might give you an interview after that. But be prepared for your game to get destroyed. They will be so mean to your game. They are going to absolutely hammer into it, and this primarily is to test if you will stand by your design decisions. They don't want someone who's going to argue. They want you to see, they want to see if you will, kind of change, you'll iterate a design based upon feedback that someone is giving you. So don't get defensive. And they're going to focus on one project. Cool, you did a year 1 summer project. You did something in year 2. You did junior, senior. It doesn't really matter. And it's hard to hear, but you need to do those things because they want to show that you've got a wealth of experience, but they're going to focus on that one project which you put at the top because they've got loads of applicants to go through. So just make your best project at the top because that's what the director, whoever's interviewing, is going to say. And you know nothing about these people. The people in industry are a hell of a lot smarter than you. So just don't sit there and argue in an interview for the love of God. I know some people that have, but you're not smarter than these people. Don't try and be. Lastly, show passion for what, your game. They want to see you talk about it. You've spent ages working on this. Pour your heart out for what you've done. It's just, you need to show that you really care about what you've worked on. And be social, be chit-chatty. These guys, they want someone who's going to fit into the team. It's more important as a junior that you can socially get along with them than it is to have good game design skills, to be honest, because they're going to mold you. They're going to mold you into what the company ideally wants from a game designer. So as long as you can communicate effectively and you can, talk to these people, you're a hell of a lot more likely to get hired. And play their games. Seriously. When you've got an interview coming up with them, just grab their most recent thing. And just say, hey, hey, I like this. It was pretty good in this game. I felt it could be better. Don't shit on it. Seriously, those people work very hard on it. If you just say, oh, this was terrible, just don't do that. So this is from my director. This is the most credible part of the presentation. This guy's been working at Ubisoft for 12 years. Very talented guy, very smart guy. And he says the first thing he wants from junior designers in interviews is show that you have a developer mindset. Understand how and why games do things. Being able to change and adapt your vision. Just understanding, scoping and de-scoping. Be able to answer developer questions. And a tip from me here is use buzzwords in interviews. I love it. And then be open to dialogue. Be able to converse properly. Be an understanding person and be a person that listens. And one of the key skills in design is being able to resolve conflict. How do you find a middle ground between your vision and the director's vision? How do you propose things that fit in the game's universe? How do you propose things that are appropriate? And you need a capacity to analyze. You need to be able to analyze your work, other people's work, and you just need to be able to understand game design in general. And play games. They want to hear how you love whatever you're playing, Dota, Siege, whatever it is. They want to hear how you're playing it, why you play it, why you think you play it, and just gargle over games for most of the interview. And lastly, one of the most important things, be able to logically construct rules. Game design is a lot about breaking things down to their fundamentals. They might even ask you something about rock, paper, scissors. How fundamentally is rock, paper, scissors balanced? How does it work? And honestly, don't take what I say as the only route. There's so many ways you can get into the industry. It is unbelievable the amount of different ways you can go about doing things. It's just, if you can find your own route, that's great. I'm mainly doing this because no one gave me really any good advice. I was like, damn, I hope this is good advice. But nobody really gave me hey, this thing's kind of a good idea. That thing's kind of a good idea. It was just make games. And then is where to find me. In summary, work hard, be prepared to get rejected, have fun making stuff, and feel free to DM me on Twitter. These slides will be on Twitter. And and if you get stuck, talk to your lecturers. They're very hardworking. They want to see you succeed. Just give it your all and do your best. Right. Any questions? We've got to bring the mic down first. Here he comes. Oh, speedy boy.
Hi, I know you talked about relocating and being prepared to move.
Yeah.
Like, has the experience been by any means difficult? Have you had to like learn any languages per se, or?
I haven't had to, luckily, because Ubisoft studios are mainly in English. But there are I'm not sure if the Paris one is in French. I'm not 100% on that. But if they're going to hire you in the first place, then, like, when they were talking to me, they didn't go, "Do you know Romanian?" Because I'm obviously going to say no. All the studio communication documentation is in English. At Ubisoft, we communicate studio to studio quite a bit. You know, I talk to Montreal a fair bit. You know, we talk to Kiev a fair bit. Like, it's all in English. Like, as far as helping you to relocate goes, I'm not too sure about other companies, because I believe if you're moving with the UK, it's a bit more like, you know, on your jog, do it yourself. But if you're flying internationally, they go very out their way to make you comfortable and make you accommodated. Ubisoft put me up in a place, they paid for my ticket. Like, they want to make sure that, you know, it's as seamless and as painless as possible. But don't be afraid to do it. Like, seriously, you're young, you can get away with it. Like, just bugger off to China for a couple of years and have a blast. You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to get to do that again, are you? And you get to make games. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Anyone else? I will be Ember after this, by the way, so if you want to buy me a bevy and we can have a chat.
So I was wondering how the sort of pipeline works with if you're getting in contact with someone through Twitter or LinkedIn or something like that, and you talk to them about job openings, whether or not they sort of put you through like a pipeline of talking to the studio afterwards, or if you just send them a CV, or how that sort of works.
A lot of it, do you mean if you specifically message someone?
Yeah. So like
It will mainly be that you've already seen something somewhere. So my mate Lewis, who's watching right now, I DM'd him. I was like, because I didn't know that you could get people to put CVs in for you. So I DM'd him. I was like, "Hey mate, you know, I'm having trouble finding a job. You know, it's been very stressful." Because he worked outside the UK. I was like, "How do you do it? You know, how do you go about it?" And he said to me, "Oh, you know, I think there's a GD job open here." He goes, "Give me your CV and I'll put it in." Like, it's just, you know, and that's a mate. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a friend I made because I went to Game Dev Society. And, you know, and I ask him a question. He's like, "Oh, you know, maybe I can help you out," sort of thing. It's a very, but in a professional, if like Philip Oliver, who was, I believe he was the old studio head of Rebellion, you know, I'd send him a nice posh email. I'd be like, "Oh, dear Mr. Oliver, you know, I saw a job going at Rebellion and I'd love to have a chance to work there, you know." If it's a mate, be like, "Wait, you know, give me a job." But if it's like a proper studio contact, don't be like that. You know, just be formal, be polite. And then they'll put your CV in, and they'll get in contact with you, and they'll be like, "Hey, you know, we heard you want to apply," or they'll just send you a design test. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, at the back. Oh, angle, mate.
So when you move abroad, would you have any recommendations for visa processes for getting into countries that are based abroad?
There's a high chance that you probably won't be able to do anything outside the European Union or anything outside the UK soon, but you know. It's a lot to do with the fact that you can pretty much work anywhere inside the European Union at the moment. And it's very painless. Like, they usually sort it out for you. You don't have to go about applying for a visa. Like, I didn't have to do it. I turned up for work and they were like, you know, go to the immigrant office and have a bash and they'll sort it out for you. It's very like they sort it out for you. They've got hundreds of people employed at, you know, these studios just for these things alone. So, you know, they want you as a game dev, not as someone who's going to go about sorting out visas and stuff. Yeah, anyone else? Okay, cool. So I blabbed on too long. Okay, thank you.